All right, good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. Let's talk tropics. I am closely tracking what is going on out there because, of course, we are still dealing with major significant impacts from flooding from Tropical Storm Debby. And we have another tropical wave that could get kind of close to us. It could push into the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, it looks like it won't be moving right into our direction, but of course, I'm here to keep track of that. First, let's get an overview of what's happened so far this season. 4 named storms, of course, Tropical Storm Alberto earlier in the season. Category 5, at least at one point, Hurricane Beryl, of course, that hit us as a Category 1 80-mile-per-hour hurricane back on July 8th. We briefly had Tropical Storm Chris that was another Gulf Coast landfall that rolled into parts of Mexico. And of course, yesterday morning, we had Debby make landfall as a Category 1 80-mile-per-hour hurricane right around the Big Bend of Florida. So it's already been a pretty active hurricane season, and we're really just starting to get into the part of hurricane season that is typically the most active. That is mid to late August and pretty much the entire month of September. So we are looking at the rest of the names on this list. If we get anything else brewing in the Atlantic Basin, that next name would be Ernesto, and then we would have Francine and Gordon. Fingers crossed that we don't have to use any of those additional names, but we certainly have the probability that, yes, we are going to have more tropical systems before this hurricane season is over. We've got very warm water temperatures out there. Let's check it out. Temps close to 90 across parts of the Gulf of Mexico and just to the south and east of Mobile, Alabama. That water temp is sitting right at 90 degrees. It's the same story for much of the Caribbean Sea, western portions of the Atlantic, water temps in the middle 80s. And of course, we have Tropical Storm Debby close to Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina right now. And it's actually forecast to kind of move offshore, and it may be able to tap into some of that warm water and actually get stronger once again. Here is a look at Tropical Storm Debby on radar. It is still rotating, churning right over the Carolinas, impacting coastal portions of Georgia, just sitting here and dumping a ton of rainfall and also still producing some gusty wind. That's why we still have that tropical storm warning in place for folks like that are in Savannah, Charleston, and also up towards Wilmington. But you can see those rain bands pushing over not just Charleston, Savannah, but up towards the Charlotte area, Augusta, and over into Raleigh, and definitely getting hit by that heavy rain in Wilmington. So this tropical storm, even though it is in a much weaker state, still posing quite a few issues for coastal portions of Georgia and the Carolinas. You can see that tropical storm watch, or warning rather, extends from Savannah up to Charleston, up to Wilmington. So we could still have some wind gusts that could be tropical storm force. There's still the risk for a few tornadoes, and the biggest risk, of course, will be for potentially major, possibly historic flooding from Tropical Storm Debby. The reason why the flood risk is so high, we're expecting Debby to kind of meander and linger and just move very slowly right over that Georgia coast, Carolina coast, not just for the rest of today, but for Wednesday, Thursday. Notice by Friday, it is still right around North Carolina, weakening to a tropical depression likely by early Friday morning. So really for the next 3 to 4 days, it's going to be really over some of the same areas, and it is bringing in that moisture, and that will translate into heavy rainfall. Also notice that it is expected to strengthen again. Right now, maximum sustained winds are around 40 miles per hour, movement very slow to the east-northeast at 3 miles per hour, so already slowing down quite a bit, nearly stationary. But it is forecast to strengthen back to a 50, possibly even 60 mile per hour tropical storm as it pushes offshore, taps into some of that warm water that acts as fuel for these tropical systems, and that could mean more strong, possibly damaging wind, and more of those heavy downpours, and yes, a few more tornadoes for folks in the Carolinas to deal with. Here is the good news. At least by this weekend, Models are showing this finally starting to pick up a little speed and head off into the northeast U.S. and eventually up into Canada, as it finally will fall apart and leave folks in Georgia and the Carolinas alone. But for the next few days, it is going to wreak havoc across places like Savannah, Charleston, and up into the Florence area, Statesboro, all under that 4 out of 4, very high risk for flash flooding for today. So that means significant catastrophic flooding possible for some of these locations. We also have the potential for more flooding as we go into tomorrow as well. But for us here, we are nice and dry. So that is the good news. But I do want to jump back over to Georgia and the Carolinas, because this will likely be the hardest hit area as far as that rain is concerned. We've already had around 10 to 16 inches of rainfall for many of the spots that you see on this map, including right around Savannah, Charleston, Wilmington. This is the forecast through Saturday. We're looking at another several inches of rain potentially for some of these locations, including Myrtle Beach up towards Wilmington, and even back around Charleston. You could still pick up another 5 to 10 inches of rain. That's on top of the over foot of rain many of these spots have already received. So that's why we're so concerned about this huge, significant flood risk, because Debby becoming nearly stationary and just producing a ton of rainfall over this area. So we're going to continue to monitor things closely. It looks like Debby will not be a problem for us, but guess what? It is going to be a problem for folks in the Carolinas. So we will be monitoring that closely. Now I want to switch gears and let you know what could be a problem for us. And we are closely tracking another tropical wave, and this one is located currently in the central Caribbean Sea. It's going to be south of Jamaica, south of Haiti and Dominican Republic, south of Cuba, and it's still fairly disorganized now. It's this big area that you see in orange, some fairly disorganized showers and storms, but models are indicating that as we get into this weekend, over the next 5 to 7 days, things could get more organized with this system. So you see where it's located right now. It is in the central Caribbean Sea, but as we go into this weekend and beyond, it is forecast to push into the western Caribbean, likely rolling right over the Yucatan Peninsula, maybe some impacts, some heavy rain and wind coming to Cancun, and then pushing into the southern Gulf of Mexico once again. So if this develops, if this blows up on us, it would be the 5th named storm, and it would also be the 5th Gulf Coast landfall if it were to come into the Gulf and make landfall. That would be 5 out of 5 so far for this hurricane season with those Gulf Coast landfalls. So we are monitoring this closely. Right now, it appears that it would push likely into the Mexican Gulf Coast and not up around the Houston area and the rest of Southeast Texas. But of course, things can change, so keep checking back. But we've already been through quite a bit so far this hurricane season, so hopefully this thing will stay to the south and just leave us alone so we can enjoy the rest of the summer and get out and have a little bit of fun without having to worry about preparing for another potential hurricane. It is super hot here. We've got heat index values into the triple digits, but at least we don't have that threat for any tropical systems heading our way for the next few days at least. But I do want to show you this forecast. This is from the Colorado State University forecasters, and the whole year they've been looking at things, conditions, that sea surface temp, the water temperatures out there being very warm, the fact that we are switching from an El Nino to La Nina pattern, and that all spells above normal tropical activity. So of course, back in July, they updated the forecast for the 2024 Atlantic Basin hurricane season, thinking that we're going to have 25 named storms. Out of those, 12 becoming hurricanes, and out of those, 6 becoming major hurricanes. So this is certainly something that we are monitoring closely. Of course, we've already had 4 named storms. We've already had 2 hurricanes, and we've had 1 major hurricane so far this season. So we could have a whole lot more. Like I said, we're really just starting to get into the part of hurricane season where things really start to pick up as far as the number of named storms, tropical systems, tropical storms, and hurricanes. We do have really the peak of hurricane season not getting here until around September 10th. So we've got a long way to go. So certainly don't let your guard down. Things may be quiet in the Houston area now, but we've got to get through a really active period, at least historically, the remainder of this month, all of September, and even the first few weeks of October before things start to kind of wind down as we get closer to the end of hurricane season. So make sure that you have your hurricane emergency gear ready to go. Know your evacuation routes. Make sure you have your insurance papers in order. Of course, we just went through this with Beryl. You probably needed to find those insurance papers if you did get damaged. So just make sure that you stay alert. And now is the time to prepare when things are quiet as they are. Well, that will do it for your tropical update. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade.